Hi, I'm Jenn Donahue. I want to thank you so much for having me as part of your conference. First, I'd like to thank all of the sponsors that have been able to help us put this together. I'm really looking forward to all of the other presentations that are coming up with, but I'd really like to bring you on my journey of taking off the camouflage. What I'm talking about is imposter syndrome and tokenism, and how to shed these ideas and just be your genuine self. Okay, so that picture there, that's me. That's when I have more makeup on. But also, this is me. So I have been in the United States Navy for 26 years. I have led troops in combat in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I had 800 people that I was in charge of while I was in Afghanistan. And what I do is typically expeditionary construction, usually for the Marine Corps. So for instance, we drive out in the middle of the desert, we pull all the trucks into a circle, we point the guns out, and then we build in the middle, and we build a water well, or we build some type of combat outpost. And then the Marines or the Army or whoever else it is, they come in after us and they occupy it. We pack up the trucks, we drive down the road, and we go do another project. So this is me. I am a part-time military. And so, like I said, for the last 26 years, I've literally been wearing camouflage. Now, a couple of things that I've noticed about when I'm wearing camouflage is that all of a sudden my posture seems to be a little bit different. I seem to stand up a little straighter and a little taller. My friends have said that whenever I'm on the phone and they can hear that I'm talking on the military, my voice changes as well. And it gets a little bit deeper and a little bit stronger when I'm talking to people. My husband has even noticed that whenever I'm in my uniform, I stand differently. So normally I would kind of be relaxed and standing, but for some reason, whenever I'm in my uniform, I'm typically standing with my feet shoulder width apart, and usually I have my arms crossed like this. It's a very confident looking position. These are all things that have come just by putting on the camouflage. All of a sudden, I'm changing my posture. I'm changing the way that I speak. All of these things are whenever I literally put on the camouflage. I'll tell you a quick story. So I've been in the military for quite some time, and my best friend has a 6-year-old daughter. And I had military duty and I had to go to my friend's house because I had to pick something up. And this was the first time that Haley had ever seen me in my uniform. Now, she's known me since birth. And so I walk in the door and I greet my friend, and Haley hides behind her mom's legs. She was actually a little afraid. She had not seen me in that, and she had not seen me in this posture. And she didn't recognize me because it wasn't who she knew. She didn't know the genuine Jennifer. So all of these things come to tell me that whenever I put on this uniform, I change. And that's what I'm talking about today, is when we go into different situations, are we becoming a different person just to fit in? So there's two things that I want to talk to you about. And the first one is imposter syndrome. Now, I have pretty much been the only woman in the room for most of my career. I'm an engineer. And so there's very few women in engineering. And there's even fewer women in engineering that have gone into the military. And because of this, I'm pretty much the only woman in the room most of the time. And so, yeah, imposter syndrome is some of those things and those thoughts that start to come into your mind in what I call the clouds of doubt. And some of these might look like, am I really the expert? Sometimes I'm like, I don't know anything, and all of these different thoughts start coming into your head, like, maybe I'm not good enough to be here, as you look around at all your other colleagues and you look different. Do I really belong here? These are the doubts that come into our mind. And let me tell you, you're not alone when you have these kinds of doubts and thoughts. Everybody has them. It's not just being the only woman in the room when you can have imposter syndrome. It's maybe you're a minority going into a majority type of room. You look around and say, I'm not like these other people. And all of a sudden these doubts start to crop up. So everybody has had them at some point. Now, also there's tokenism. And really what tokenism is when you're the single person. Maybe it's by race, maybe it's by gender, maybe you're the only single person, that has a whole group of married friends. There's all types of different tokenism. And I'll tell you, nobody wants to be the token. I felt like if I was a token female, I didn't want to be any part of it. I wanted to get to where I was on the merits of what I knew and what I could do. I did not want to be the token female that someone felt like, oh, we have to have a female, so let's grab Jenn. I never wanted to be that token. Nobody wants to be the token. And so with imposter syndrome and tokenism, a lot of times we feel like we have to fit into the group that's around us. And so we put on our own camouflage. That camouflage helps us. It protects us. It helps us blend in so that we don't stand out, so that we're not ostracized. We all do it. So I want to give you a couple of case studies. These are 3 fabulous women that I know, and we're going to talk about each one of them and how they've dealt with their camouflage. The first one is Adda. Adda is now the very first female professor at a very prestigious university in a very small segment of engineering. She's the only female professor. Now, her husband is also a professor there, and they have offices that are just right down the hallway from each other. And so she can actually hear her husband whenever he's talking to his different students. And she says it's very interesting because she feels like she can't be herself. As the first female professor there, she feels like she has to try to fit into some type of mold. She hears her husband talking very directly to his students and berating them and things like that. And she feels like she can't have that same type of attitude towards her students, because they start to call her names. Some of her students even tried to start calling her by her first name. They don't do that with any of the other professors, but for some reason they felt like they could, just say, Adda, I need this, as opposed to Professor Zekos. So she tried to put on her own set of camouflage and try to blend in with the other professors. She had to change who she was. She felt like she couldn't be direct with her students. She felt like she had to soften her message a little bit compared to what she would really like to be. And I asked her about it, and she says, you know what, I'm still wearing that camouflage. I don't feel I'm at the point now. I don't have the confidence in order to take it off. Our next case study is Zara. So Zara immigrated from Iran, and so she's Persian, and she is so beautiful, but she also loves to wear high heels. She loves to dress up. She loves to be really beautiful. And she is beautiful. So the second case is Zara. So Zara immigrated from Iran, and she is an engineer, and she went to go work for an engineering firm. Zara was coming to the land of opportunity here in the US. She thought that is no holds barred. She's very professional. She's very beautiful. And so she wanted to dress the part every single day. She's only 5'2", so she wore these high heels in order to try to be a little bit taller. She always had the most beautiful jacket and shirt, and she always wore a nice little skirt, that went down to the knees. She always looked so professional. But she was in an office of all male engineers, and they all wore khakis. They all wore the little button-down shirts. And one of her colleagues complained and said that she was dressing inappropriately. So the HR of the company had to come, and they thought that she was dressed inappropriately because she was so dressed up for the office that she was wearing a skirt in an engineering firm. That's not fair. She didn't realize whenever I talked to her that she was supposed to wear camouflage. She thought, oh, I'm just going to go there and I'm going to be myself. But because of this, and she didn't know about wearing camouflage, she told me she was ostracized. She had HR called on her because she was wearing a skirt to all of these different functions. She never went out into the field. She was always in the office. And basically they told her, you can't dress like that anymore. You have to dress more like the men. That's not really fair. but they made her put on the camouflage, and she's decided she'd had it. She quit and she started her own company where she can be her genuine self. Our last case study is Jennie. So Jennie also was working for an engineering firm, and she found that she inadvertently didn't even realize it. She was actually wearing camouflage. She had the brown khaki pants and she had the button-down shirt. She'd go to work every day and just tried to blend in as best as possible. Now, Jennie is absolutely brilliant. She has a PhD. She's one of the leading seismologists in the world. And one day she said, you know what? I don't have to do this anymore. I am going to be myself. And she decided to ditch the khaki pants and ditch the button-down shirt and actually wear a skirt to work. And she said it was the most gratifying thing that she had ever done, because she's like, you know what? If people don't want to work with me because I'm wearing a skirt, then I don't want to work with them. She had the confidence to say, you know what? I am going to be me. I am going to be my genuine self. And that might be wearing a skirt from time to time, and might even be wearing a dress to work. And she found that whenever she was able to take off that camouflage, she was happier. So 3 women, one of them still is wearing the camouflage. One of them didn't know she was supposed to wear the camouflage. And one of them has finally come to the place where she says, you know what? I'm not going to do it anymore. So is it okay to wear camouflage? This is a question that I get quite often. And in my opinion, yes, it is okay to wear camouflage, especially if you're very new to a place. Look around the room. What are other people wearing? How are other people speaking? We all want to make a good impression, but sometimes if we go a little bit too far, it's hard to back up and try to be, to be able to try to fit in. And so as we're starting to go into new places, maybe it's a new job, maybe it's a new position, wear the camouflage at first. Get the lay of the land. Understand who you're dealing with. So I would say, yes, it is okay to start wearing camouflage. But when is it not okay to wear camouflage? I would say that you have to look inside. If you're realizing that I'm wearing camouflage and that I'm not happy, I'm not being my genuine self. If it's starting to hurt other people because you're trying to be something that you're not, if you're trying to fake it until you make it, if you're just so miserable that it's time to take it off, this is when you start to have these hard conversations. I'll just tell you, I had a job whenever I was younger, and I worked with some people and I had to be a certain way, and it just made me absolutely miserable. I mean, it made me so miserable that whenever I drove home, my husband actually held a glass of wine outside of the door and said, drink this before you come in the house. That's how miserable that was, because I was trying to fit into something that I wasn't. So there are times when it's like, you know what? It's time to take the camouflage off. For my friend Adda, you know what? Maybe it's not time for her yet. Maybe she has to have more confidence before she can take it off. She says she's not completely miserable yet, but when she starts to get to that point, I would say, yes, it is. Okay, so now what? Jenn, what are you trying to tell me? Where are we trying to go with this? I'm going to say that there's a couple different pieces of a pyramid that we need to get to. The first step is recognize. Recognize that you're wearing camouflage. Now, the best way to do this is really to just look inside yourself and say, am I being my genuine self when I'm at work? Talk to your colleagues. Ask them, am I being different when I'm at work as opposed to whenever you see me otherwise? Maybe ask your spouse or your significant other or your roommate. Ask them if they start to notice different things whenever you're on the phone with work. Are you using different language? I'll tell you, for me, in the military, it's one of those things where we actually use curse words a lot more often than in the civilian world. And I notice that whenever I'm doing military duty, I seem to swear a lot more than whenever I'm doing my civilian work. It's just one of those things that I noticed that Yes, that's a form of camouflage. I'm trying to fit in. So recognize these things first. And this comes back to that imposter syndrome and the tokenism. And so I want to show you a quick graphic about imposter syndrome. So as you see there in the teal, those are people who have had imposter syndrome. And in the purple, those are other people who have had imposter syndrome. And in the light green, that's everybody else who has literally had imposter syndrome. Everybody has it. And it's okay to have it. You just have to recognize it. And you have to push those clouds of doubt out of the way. So again, it's okay to have the imposter syndrome. You just have to recognize it, and you can't let yourself fall into that. Now, next, we're going to evaluate. So we know we're wearing camouflage. Now it's time to evaluate. When is the right time to take off the camouflage? That's something that you have to answer yourself. Are you ready? Maybe you want to do it right away. Maybe you want to take off all the camouflage at once. Well, I'd recommend a couple of things to you first. One, make a checklist. Here's all of my different accolades. Here's my rewards. Here's what I bring to the fight. Am I ready? This is also going to help combat that imposter syndrome and that tokenism, because you're going to realize your value and how much you really have inside of you that you can bring forward, that you don't have to hide behind the camouflage anymore. So evaluate is now the right time. And all these little tools that I'll bring up a little bit later are going to help get you there. Last, it's time to act. Okay, what does that mean? What does acting mean? Maybe you've decided, you know what, I'm going to take off the camouflage. There's my camouflage. There's the blouse that I wear. There's the hat, and there's my boots. What you don't see there is you don't see my pants, because I've decided to keep them on. When I'm in my military duty, then I find that I still have to keep a little bit of that camouflage on. For 25 years, they've known me in a very specific way. You know, I act this way, I speak this way, I talk this way. If I were to strip off all the camouflage at once, they would probably have no idea who they're talking to. Now, I have been able to pull off little bits and pieces, you know, as I've been able to go over the last couple of years, so that I can be more of myself. But to be honest, I haven't been able to take it all off. On my civilian side, in my engineering career, I've taken it all off. I am my genuine self whenever I am doing civilian engineering. And it feels really good because I can laugh and joke with people that I can't necessarily do when I'm on the military side. So you might find in different situations, you have some camouflage on, and in others, you can completely strip it off. It's up to you. You have to decide how much of the camouflage to take off and when. So on Monday morning, I have a couple actions for you. I need you to take a hard look in the mirror. I need you to understand who you are. Do a self-assessment. All of these things that I've been talking about for the last several minutes, are they starting to resonate with you? Are you acting different when you're at work? Are you acting and speaking differently in different situations and in different crowds? And is it coming to the point where you feel like, you know what, I'm not happy, I'm not comfortable doing this? That's what it means. Talk to your friends. Talk to those that are closest to you and really have an examination of who you are in these different types of situations. Okay, so that's number one. And if you feel that you're ready and you're maybe not quite sure yet, pick up the phone, send a text, and talk to your mentor. If you don't have a mentor, I highly advise you go and find one. I have several different videos that I talk about having a mentor, but we're not going to get into that now. But if you are unsure, talk to your mentor. Is it time? Is it time to break out of all of this and let me be myself? Last, and this is the most important, I want you to sit down with a piece of paper or an iPad or whatever it is, and I want you to start thinking about focusing on your value. What do you bring to the fight? This is going to help give you confidence because you're writing it down. This is what I can do. This is the value. This is what I bring to my organization. Write it down. Track your successes. What have you done over the last couple of years? Have you been promoted? Have you won awards? Think about all those things. Again, this is going to start to build that confidence. Remind yourself of the positives. It's so easy to start looking at the negative. Look at the positive. This is going to help you start to take off bits and pieces of camouflage. And embrace your strengths. Okay, lastly, and this is the most important one, stop comparing yourself to others. Part of imposter syndrome and tokenism is all about looking around you and saying, am I as good as so-and-so? Am I really supposed to be here like that person? Stop. Just stop what you're doing and realize you are there for a reason. Most companies, whenever they hire you, they're going to hire you because you are the best person for the job. They don't want to take a risk on hiring somebody else that they don't think is qualified. You are there because you are the best person to be there. So stop comparing yourself to others. Realize how great you are on the inside, and that's going to help you have confidence so that you can go forward. And with that, I want to thank all of our sponsors. If you have any questions or any thoughts on this, please follow me. I would love to have your thoughts and comments on this. I hope you have a great day.